Hello, everyone, and welcome to the fifth episode of On Air with Alumni. Today, we have with us Harveen Kaur, who graduated from IIT Delhi in 2014 with a BTech in Electrical Engineering. She then completed her Master's in Computer Engineering from University of California, San Diego. Currently, she's working with Google in USA as a software engineer. In the past, she has also worked with Apple and Intel. So today we'll be talking about her journey and her experiences in life. So we're really delighted to have her here. And firstly, I would like to extend a really warm welcome to her. Hi, Harveen. Welcome to On Air with Alumni.
Hey Rakshita, thank you so much. I'm really excited to talk to you today about my experiences, and thanks so much to decide to interview me. I'm really honored.
Thank you very much for joining today. We are really delighted to have you here. So firstly, let us start with your pre-IIT life, like your
Yeah.
JE times. So
Yeah.
we'd like to know how were your JE preparation days, and since you chose electrical engineering, did you really have it in mind beforehand that you wanted to do this, or was it something you decided later on?
Sure, yeah, I can. My story is actually kind of interesting, so I can talk about that. I didn't know about like if I really want to go to IIT. I knew that I really wanted to do engineering. So that's something. It's not like my parents were like, "Hey, you have to do engineering, or either do engineering or become a doctor." So I know a lot of people are in that situation. But for me, I really had this interest in engineering since I was a young kid, and that comes from the fact that there's two things. So first, I was introduced to programming really early. So my school, I don't know why they decided to like introduce programming in grade like fifth grade. So I there's like a really basic programming language for kids. It's called Logo. So that's where I started, and then I learned HTML, and then I learned C, C++, all through my school life. So I was introduced to programming really early. I was lucky that way, and it actually like really clicked. I really loved programming. It was like so logical, and I was like so fascinated by it. So that was one thing. I loved computers. And then the other thing was like my dad, he's an engineer himself, and he loves electronics. Like he is like, he does it as a hobby. So my like childhood memories are, sitting with my dad, actually trying to assemble a computer by ourselves. And then, he would discuss with me like, oh, do you need a graphics card? What kind of graphics card should we get? And then, I was helping him plug in the cards in the slots because my hands were smaller. So I could like, do that. So those are like some of my childhood memories. Again, this is like very atypical, right? Like not everyone gets that opportunity. So I was lucky that I had this exposure, like when I was young. So because of that, I knew that I wanted to get into engineering. And again, as I said, computers and like electronics, I was exposed to both of them. So in terms of JEE preparation days, my like preparation was like kind of similar to what everyone does. For 2 years, I did not see any movies. I did not like, have any Facebook account or anything. I was just sitting and studying. I went to with them on the classes in Delhi. So that was a really nice experience. But then when I finally did get the JEE rank, I had to kind of choose between computer science and electrical. So I narrowed it down to that. And since I had exposure to both of them, like that was kind of my decision that I had to make. And at that point, I kind of chose to go towards electrical because I was like more interested, and it seemed like a hobby to me at that time. So
Well, that's really interesting, because most people these days just choose branch based on their ranks and stuff and don't really go towards what their interest is. So that's really interesting and inspiring. Let us now talk about your college days. So, how were your college days, like your IIT life, and what all activities were you really involved with?
right. So my IIT life was actually like when we were living through that life, I mean, I didn't really think much about it, but now that like I'm out of IIT, I'm like, oh wow, that was great. And I really miss it. So right into like my first year, I wanted to like I tried different clubs. Like there's like this orientation and the different clubs try to like attract freshers and stuff. I was interested in a couple of them, but like the one that really, pulled me towards it was the robotics club. So right in my first semester, I was like, okay, I have to do this. This is like super interesting. The only downside was like there were not many girls who were like interested in that. So, but even with that, like, I had friends who were like guys, and then, we created a team, and like there was like a competition that you had to participate in to like enter the club. And we did that, and like it was super fun, mainly because like you're building this thing. And like, as I said, electronics or anyway was a kind of a hobby for me. And like getting into the robotics club like, kind of gave me that avenue to like explore more about it and learn more about it. So the exciting part for me was like you could build something and you can watch it like kind of run, and like you can actually just see that come to life kind of. So that was like super fascinating for me. So yeah, I joined the robotics club. I was with the club for like kind of a long time, for like 3 years. I was like kind of regular with the club, and then towards my fourth year, like I wasn't so regular. I was like more of a consultant at that point. So since I knew a lot about robotics and electronics in general by then, like I was just consulting and like helping people who were like in like trying to do projects. um, and then in the fourth year, actually, some of the second year students, like when I was in my fourth year, the second year students kind of decided to, have an electronics club, which was awesome. Like I really like that idea. And they kind of asked me if like, I would mentor them and like I would, help them set it up. So I and like there's another person from my batch, Nitin Kamra. So both of us like got together and we mentored those, juniors, and like together we created the electronics club at that point. So those were the two clubs I was basically involved with. And then since I had helped like set up the electronics club, I was also like kind of the general secretary. There was no elections, but like, yeah, that's kind of all the things that I did at IIT. Yeah.
Wow, really interesting. I mean, you really started the club. So yeah, that was really interesting. And you were involved with these clubs for like towards even the end of your fourth year.
Yeah.
That's like rarely seen, because mostly people just get involved with their academics and the jobs and they don't
Mhm.
really pay attention towards these. So yeah, really interesting and really inspiring. So
Thanks.
another thing, I think you also mentioned the same thing that there are not many girls in these clubs. So what
Right.
would you like to say about that? What's your take on that?
Yeah. So firstly, I want to say like it was difficult for me. Um, Not so much because even through school, like a lot of my friends were guys. So yeah, again, I had that exposure. It wasn't like I was from a girls' school and like it was my first time like talking to a guy and when I was like super scared or something. So I did have that exposure. I was lucky that way. But even with that, it was like kind of difficult, and I can say why, and I can say like some things that if they would have changed, uh, you know, it wouldn't become much easier for girls to participate actually. So there are some things that are like logistical. So I can talk about those first. So firstly, the student activity center like in IIT Delhi is like it's much closer to the boys hostel than it is to the girls hostel, right? So that was actually a pretty big challenge for me because we used to like practice at nights and stuff, and like we used to build our robots and do the coding at night. And then coming back from there to like the girls hostel, it was kind of like it was quite a ride.
Oh
And
yeah.
yeah, there's like dogs and stuff like so. It was kind of scary also because it's at night, like late night, kind of like 2 a.m. or 4 a.m. I used to like walk back. It's like around a kilometer or something. I used to walk back to my hostel. So, and I was alone all the time. So those are some logistical things. I feel like if I don't know what the situation is right now and where the club is like kind of concentrated, but back then it was in the student activity center. And if they could like find kind of a midway for like boys and girls, I think that would that's one thing that could encourage participation. So that is that. And then the other thing is like for the tech clubs, I noticed that we didn't have any inter-hostel competitions. So that's something I also feel like if you had inter-hostel competitions, that by itself would like encourage like Himadri and Kailash. And if there's a new girls hostel, I don't know, it's been a long time since I
Yeah,
got
there's
out
a
of.
new one now, Nalanda.
Okay, great. Yeah, so it would encourage these hostels to like form the teams and like kind of take part in the competition. So when I was back there, the competition was like not inter-hostel. It was like you find a team, you come in, and you do compete and stuff. So if we had that, I feel like more girls would have been interested. The other thing I want to talk about is like role models. Role models are like incredibly important. For me growing up, like all my role models were like men, guys, engineering, doing like these scientists and stuff like that, right? So even in IIT, like for the robotics club, like all our seniors, there were like guys, right? So if like whoever girls like participate in these clubs, like if they're more visible or they like try to make an effort to like mentor other girls to like enter the club, I think that would be something that's like really going to improve the participation. So during my tenure there, like what I did was I tried to be kind of the face of the club. So we had these workshops for freshers, which I also attended in my first year, and then from the second year I started conducting them. So the reason I like decided to conduct them was so that people actually see that there's like a girl like doing all of this. So at least like that would encourage more women to be like, okay, there's a girl in the club, we can probably like, it's not all male dominated. So it's important for like having these role models. And like I didn't have any, like I didn't have many, but I wish like the classes that come now and like the batches right now have that. And I definitely think that will increase participation. Sorry.
Well, really, those ideas could really help a lot in this, I totally agree with them. Another thing I would like to know, like, what do you think? Like, how do you define the role of females in STEM? And
Mhm.
what, according to you, we can do as a community to foster more participation?
Right. I think this is a great extension of the previous question, right? So something that, as a community, I feel it can be daunting. Like if there's a male dominated environment and you want to enter that, I totally get that. And I felt that too myself. But I just feel like we as women should try to question stereotypes. So for example, there's like so many stereotypes of like, oh, like, girls and maths, like they're like all into like beauty products and like they don't know math and stuff like that. As a woman, like you have to question all of these beliefs and you have to understand like where is this coming from, is this like even valid, like is this even a thing, so I never like I always tried to like question these stereotypes, and I was like, if a guy can do it, like why can't I? That makes no sense to me. Like I can definitely be in the robotics club, why not? I know it can be really daunting. I'm not like kind of diminishing the intimidation that can come with it. But we need to remember as women that our voice is like as important as like any other guy's voice. And in fact sometimes it could be more important. Women have this creative bent of mind which can really be different from like what the guys are thinking. It can really help and really contribute to uh whatever project you're working on or like whatever is going on. So diverse opinions always lead to much better outcomes. It's what I believe. So we as women should like remember that, and like we should kind of try to have our voice heard wherever we can do that. So that is one thing. But again, as I said, role models are like super super important. Even as growing up, my role models were all like Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, all men. If you have to name some like famous women in tech, like there are a handful, but they are not even they're not very common. Also they're not as celebrated as men. So men are celebrated more than women even now. We are in 2020 2021, sorry, and it's still the case. So having role models is like incredibly important, and we should actually go out and seek role models actively as women, because that's something we have to do now, because there's fewer women role models. That's just the reality. So if you're able to seek mentors who are women, we are able to seek role models. I think that would also help us as women to carve out our path.
Yeah, I totally agree. So, since you were like part of these major tech clubs at IIT Delhi, how would you define IIT Delhi's performance in these clubs? And what, according to you, needs to be changed in order to improve the growth of these clubs, these tech clubs?
Right. So I'm going to start with a disclaimer, and that is that I graduated from IIT. Like it's going to be almost 7 years now. So it might have changed, but like from when I was back there, IIT Delhi was not the strongest in technical performance. It was more like much more strong in like cultural stuff. So like dance, like, and like fashion shows and stuff. I think they always used to like win prizes in like Rendezvous and all. But the tech fest itself, like Trist, wasn't very strong. And then the performance in outside technical fest was also not very strong. I know this because I myself participated in tech fest like almost every year. I went to like IIT Bombay one year, and I think 2 years I went to IIT Bombay. And we really did not do that well. And even for Robocon, that's like the major competition that robotics club participates in. Our performance was not consistent. Like some years it's nice, some years it's not that great. So it's not very consistent. So, but we have been trying. So the first thing is to like keep trying. So that we are doing. I think robotics club is still active and like we're still trying. So that's good. The other thing, as I said, like the divide I saw between like other clubs, like you can take like the quizzing club or like the dance or whatever, and then the robotics club, was the big divide I saw was that there's no inter-hostel like kind of competitions, or there's no inter-hostel feeling attached to it. So when for the dance competitions I saw, like people were so enthused and they were like so excited to participate because it would count towards like the hostel points and stuff. The same feeling or like the same kind of loyalty to your hostel does not emerge with the robotics and other technical clubs. So I feel like that could encourage people to take it more seriously. The other thing is like I feel a lot of people have an interest in like the technical clubs, but then they attend like the first session or like the first orientation, and then they kind of lose interest and then they drop off. That is also something that might need to be addressed. So maybe we are not like we are intimidating people or something. That's something I also saw like during my year and like when I was teaching. People were like really interested in like everyone likes robots, right? They're like, oh, robots, artificial intelligence, wow, this is so great. And then they attend the first session and they were like, oh, this is too much for me, and they would drop off. So that is something that might need to be addressed, like maybe by having some cool demos or like some interesting, robots like in the first session, so that people, you can kind of engage them more, or like have them kind of stay back more. I think that's something that needs to be done as well.
So yeah, I believe these are really potential ideas, and yeah, really interesting. So now next we'd like to know, like we got to know that you worked on a project with Professor M. Balakrishnan, which was like a really interesting project. So please tell us more about that.
Right. So I actually worked on a couple of projects with him. So the thing I liked about my IIT life, as you said in the beginning, is that I actually took a lot of courses which were only project courses. So I did like an independent study, and then there was this course. I don't remember the name actually, but it was again by Professor Balakrishnan, and that course was literally just a project course. So you had to like form teams, and you had to just make some embedded system, which basically is like you have to make some sort of electronics by the end of it, uh, electronic system that would serve some purpose, and you had to like kind of make that by the end of the semester and then present that. And most of the course was just like presentations that was kind of geared towards that. There was no lectures and stuff. So I did take those courses, and then one of my projects with him was during that course, and that was it was called a refreshable braille device, I think. So what it does is like Professor Balakrishnan's research is towards geared towards accessibility, and his lab is also assistive technologies, right? So a lot of the research is around visually impaired people. So this particular device that we made during that project, what it did was it, how braille is the language that is used for visually impaired people for reading. So usually that text is usually static, right? It's a book, and then the text doesn't change like it would in a screen or like on a phone, right? So that text is not dynamic. So what we were working on at that time was a cell where the braille could be dynamically changed. So that's what we were working on. It was pretty interesting. By the end of it, we had a demo, and we could actually show a calculator, which was like Braille calculator. So you could see the results in Braille, and it was dynamic. So that was really, really cool. The other thing I did with him was my BTech project, my final year BTech project, was completely with him. I did it for 1 year. That was about the Smart Cane. Smart Cane is like pretty famous, like I think one of the most famous products that came out from IIT Delhi. So my project was an extension of the Smart Cane, where the usual Smart Cane is a cane for visually impaired people, which has an ultrasound sensor, and that helps detect the distance of like any obstacle that the person might face. So my project was to augment that, and like instead of just a simple ultrasound sensor, we tried to put like a depth sensor on it. So at that point, depth sensors were not like as small; they were like kind of big. So we started out with a prototype using Microsoft Kinect, which is like a gaming system, but it had a depth camera. So we started with that, and then we refined it slowly. So that was the idea. So we got like a depth image of like what's in the scene, and then using that information, we would like notify the visually impaired person on like there's an obstacle at this much distance, and like what's the profile of the obstacle, is it big, is it small, is it tall, is it long. So we did those kind of things.
Well, those are like really interesting projects, to be honest. So really, you achieved like quite a much. So next, we'd like to talk about your GRE preparation. So you had a really amazing score of 334 out of 340, like really. So please tell us, how did you actually go about preparing for GRE?
So I won't say that, oh, I toiled a lot and like it was a lot of hard work, because it was not for me personally. I think I did prepare for like 2 to 3 weeks. For math, I basically refer to the official GRE prep material. I feel like that's pretty good, and like if you just do that and do some more practice tests from like other places, I think that is sufficient, because in IIT like our courses are all pretty math heavy. So like we are already used to like doing calculations and stuff in our head. So I just need a refresher. So the official material was good enough for that. The vocabulary part of it is like definitely really tricky. So the one book that really helped me for that is there's a book called Word Power Made Easy. I think it's by Norman Lewis, but you can check. It's a really famous book. It's red in color, and like everyone knows that back in my school, we used to call it the red book. But it basically has tricks and techniques to like learn a lot of words in like a really small time. So it uses etymology, which is like the study of words, to kind of teach you groups of words together. So I used that book. It really helped me increase my vocabulary, exponentially, really quickly. And then the other thing I did for vocabulary is like I kept a notebook for like, whatever new words I was exposed to on an everyday basis. And then I used to just like jot them down and keep revising them. So that also helped me a lot.
I see. So, why didn't you go for masters directly after your IIT, and why did you really wait for some time before your masters?
Right. So there's two aspects to this. The first one is that I really wanted to work. Actually, I was quite excited to, put like all my skills that I learned in IIT to like actually an industry setting and like, contribute to the industry and like the tech field. So I was like super excited to do that. So that was part of it. But another like big part of it was that I actually kind of did the mistake of like not being super in touch with my seniors and like not kind of referring to them when I was making my decisions. So that's something I would actually, if I'm able to like give a message to people through this interview, is would be like definitely do the networking, definitely ask for advice, and then decide on what you want to do. I did not talk to so many seniors, and I really did not know how much value a master's could add to your profile. Only after I started my job and I started talking to a lot of other people is when I realized that okay, a master's could really add value if you are like interested in a specific field in your overall um, like electrical engineering field. So I was really interested in a specific field and I understood that okay, this is something I should study more about. But that was only after I started my job and I started talking to a lot more people and I understood like their experiences and learned from that. So I would definitely advise people to start doing this earlier than I started doing it. So maybe if in touch with your seniors in your second year, third year, you can start preparing way earlier. And if you think that it's the right choice for you to go for masters after BTech, sure. In retrospect, I think doing my job first actually helped me because it gave me some work experience, which helped in when I came in the US, came to the US, and it also helped me like bag internship offers and stuff like that because I already had work experience. So there's like pros and cons to it.
Yeah, I see. So you bagged the job at Intel right after your graduation.
Yeah.
How would you describe your experience there?
Oh, it was yeah, as I said, it was a great experience. I was quite looking forward to it. It was like in some aspects it wasn't what I had expected, but in some aspects it was like super great. I learned so much from it. So the first thing I learned from it was to how to like kind of be in a professional setting, or like what are the things you need to do on a daily basis, have meetings, get like book these conference rooms for meetings, and those are pretty much the same across all companies that you work in, and those are things you're never exposed to when you're in a student in college. So how to conduct meetings, how to like give status updates, how to be regular with your work. And then also Unix was a big part of it. I did not know much of Unix before, and I learned that on my job. There's like a lot of learning that happened during that. So those are some things that I worked, like I learned basically how to be professional and stuff like that. So that was a great experience. The only downside was like I realized that the profile I had chosen for my job wasn't exactly what I wanted to do long term. So then even that wasn't learning experience, right? So I figured it out and I was like, okay, this is probably not right for me. Then I shifted a role within Intel, and then I worked on that for a little bit, and that gave me even more exposure on like, okay, these are the different things within the electrical engineering, even within that like VLSI, like these are the different things that one could work on, because there's just such a huge gamut of things you could work on, right? So that exposure was necessary, and that job gave me that. Yeah.
So could you maybe elaborate more on your roles in Intel, like whatever
Yes,
roles?
sir. Yeah, as I said, I switched roles in between. So I had two roles. I started off as a DFX component engineer, and that basically means there's design for testing is a concept, which means that you insert some blocks in a chip. So there's an whatever SoC or chip you're working on, insert some blocks in it, which would help you test the chip. So you can externally test it by giving in some inputs and then monitoring the outputs. You can test the SoC and see like if everything is working correctly or not. So my job was to like work on those particular components only. So that was that. And although it was like a good learning experience, I felt like it wasn't something that I would want to do long term. So then I decided to switch towards something that's different, and I looked for roles internally at Intel, and something that kind of grabbed my attention was graphics, so I then changed to graphics hardware engineer, where I was working on graphics cards. So Intel chips usually have an integrated graphics unit inside them, which helps video, like run videos and games and stuff. So I was working on that, and I learned so much from it. That was like really great. But again, doing all of this, I kind of realized that I probably want to learn more about these things. So that's when kind of transitioned to, looking into masters and applying for that.
I see. So we'd like to know, like, what really was the reason behind leaving such a sought after job and then going to pursue masters at UCSD?
Right. I've already hinted a little bit at it, but I can, be
Yeah, maybe you
short.
could elaborate a little more.
So I realized, while working on all of this, that my real interest was kind of into computer architecture. And also, like, if I become more specific, it was for software that's for like hardware kind of. So as I said, like, I had exposure to computer programming like since I was really young. I also had exposure to electronics. So what I became much more interested in was like the intersection of software and hardware. So that was something I like felt like, okay, this is something I should explore and like learn more about. And even computer architecture, I was super interested in it. Like, my idea of doing a job in like this hardware industry would be to actually design like the next generation of like Intel's CPUs, but that wasn't happening. And I talked to a couple of people at Intel, and they kind of were interested more in hiring people who had a master's, just because with the research and like with that experience of doing a master's, you gain a lot more knowledge about the subject area. And that's basically what motivated me to be like, okay, I don't know enough about this, I should go and learn more about it, and then figure out like where I want to go.
I see. Um, so next, we'd like to know, how was your experience of studying in a foreign country?
Right. So firstly, I've been in the US for like what, I think around 5 years now. So yeah, it has been a good experience overall for sure. When I first came here, there were like a lot of differences as compared to India. Some could take them in a good way or in a bad way. The major difference is like you are much more independent here, because I was mostly staying alone. I had to do all my cooking, cleaning, everything on my own. So that was kind of a culture shock, when you come from India. And I was a day scholar in IIT. I used to stay at home with my mom, and she used to do all the cooking for me. So it was definitely, a learning curve. Trying to get myself fed was itself a challenge. But yeah, again, that independence also comes with like so many advantages, right? I learned to be out and about on my own, so that was great. And then definitely there's like so much more exposure here. The courses that I did during the masters, I think all of those were like really good courses. The good thing about masters is that you can really choose what you want to study, so that's good. And then the courses at UCSD were really nice in the sense that a lot of the courses had paper reading as assignments. So that gave me a sense of what's the current research that's going on. Where's the like tech space headed in that sense, or what's the academia kind of researching about right now. So I think that was something that really stood out to me.
Well, great. Um, Also, what are the like basic demarcations you'd have to say when it comes to education in US compared to India? So, yeah.
Right. So my experience has been doing undergraduate in India and then graduate studies in the US, right? So I can compare those two. Um, so the first thing that I basically noticed, I think we all know that in India, marks are like, there's a lot of focus on like grades and stuff like that, right? Basically, you want to get into college, you need to have like really good score in the JEE exam, and then throughout after that, like, you should have good grades in all your courses. I am not opposed to that. I feel like it's good that you're like kind of showing your seriousness and your hard work, and for like, that kind of shows up in your grades, but not always, right? Like there could be differences in the way the professor is grading, there could be other variations, right? So I do feel that there should not be so much obsession over grades. They should only be taken like as a maybe general like yardstick, but not like a kind of do or die situation where like, oh, you need to have this much grade to like do this. So that is definitely not the case in the US, especially for the masters. So in the masters, like, grades are not really obsessed over at all. Like, it's more of a research experience. So what is more important is your projects and like how well you're doing on your assignments, and how creative you are at your project work basically. And then you also kind of can associate yourself with a professor and work with them more and gain the research experience, and do a lot more of your courses in terms of research credits rather than academic courses. So that's a difference between bachelor's and like masters. But the main difference as compared to like India would be that here, like if there's a problem in the US, you they encourage you to have like different solutions to the same problem, and there's no one right solution. So while growing up in India, I was like always conditioned to be like, oh, okay, this is the question and this is the answer, and like this is the correct answer to this one, right? That's what usually happens, and that's how things are graded. But here, like if there's a question, it's usually like open ended, and like there's no one right answer, or there's like no one right way to like do things, and that shows even in like the workplace as well. So if there's a problem in the workplace, there's a meeting and like everyone is like throwing different ideas. There's no one right solution to do things. And creativity is like encouraged a lot more in that sense, creative thinking and critical thinking as well. So I think that's the major difference that I felt.
Well, that was really insightful. Moving on, we'd like to. Okay, so you have actually achieved a lot in your life. We all know that. But has there been anything that you regret, or maybe what have been your like failure stories like? And what do you think? What would you advise? Like, what could people learn out of those?
Sure. I think this is a really good question. And like if someone's watching this interview, they would be able to like learn from, the alumni's mistakes. I think that's a very valuable lesson. So I do have a lot of regrets from my IIT time, and I did hint at it a little bit earlier. The one big thing I did not do is like I was not networking enough back then. I was, right, fresh out of school, just got into college, and I didn't really know that, you had to do this. So it's important. And also I was a day scholar. I wasn't living in hostel. So, like, my exposure to seniors was kind of limited as well. So I feel like over the years, as I've, been in these different roles in my jobs, I have learned that networking is super important. And I know you should kind of, talk to people, learn from their mistakes, learn from their experiences, and then, kind of take decisions for yourself. I think you're much more informed that way. So that's my advice. People should do that. The other thing I did not do while I was at IIT is I feel I did not apply for like opportunities enough. So there's like a lot of people try to do an internship in a foreign country in their second year or third year. Some people apply for like Google Summer of Code, some people apply for a foreign semester. I did none of those things. And I think a big part of that was imposter syndrome. I felt like maybe I'm not good enough, which in retrospect, I don't think why I thought like that, but I don't know why I thought like that, but that's just what happened. And I didn't apply for enough opportunities is what I felt. Maybe if I did apply for them, I would have got some of them, who knows? So I just thought that I'm not good enough. So, why even bother applying? I think that's something we all of us face on some level, in different parts of our life as well. I think imposter syndrome is something we should all talk about, and we should all realize that okay, I'm feeling this because of imposter syndrome. Let me at least try and see if I get rejected. So now I'm starting to do this a lot more in my life, but I did not do it back then. So those are some of my regrets. In terms of failures, we did. I with my friends, I did try to start like um, a kind of a startup. Really, like it was a really small effort that we started. During my fourth year at IIT, I was actively, going to different schools and teaching about robotics. So there's a Kendriya Vidyalaya within IIT, and then there's like also we went to other schools like DPS, RK Puram, and other schools where we went and like taught high school kids about robotics to like kind of increase their interest in this subject. So I was actively, coordinating those workshops and teaching in there. So that was something I wanted to continue like after I graduated as well. So when I was back at Intel, like, as a part-time thing, I started with my friends. We tried to like create a company which would, go to schools and, introduce that curriculum about robotics and other technical things to high school students. And we basically, did not try enough. That was the failure. We went to a couple of schools, we talked to them, some of them showed interest, some of them did not show interest at all. And, we were disappointed at that and we just gave up, and now I realize that, we should have not given up so early, and we should have like, been at it. Like that is like failures are what like the kind of the stepping stones, right? So yeah, we gave up really soon. So that was kind of a failure story of my life. We'll see if I ever get back to that and do it again later.
Yeah, definitely. So, you've had like these amazing job experiences and you've had an amazing education. How did that help you land a job in Apple? And like, what was your experience there at Apple?
Mhm. Yeah, so at Apple, as I said, when I came to the US for my master's, so usually right in the first like semester, or like I had a quarter system. So right in the first quarter, we were supposed to start looking for internship opportunities. So the fact that I already had, job experience back in India really helped me there. So my resume already had like a bunch of, um, experience points related to, my job at Intel. And then I also had good projects in IIT. So that's another advice actually. So you try to use your time at IIT to do some projects so that your resume can stand out from other people. That's important for like applying for masters and thereafter as well. So due to those things, like having good projects and like job experience, I was able to land an internship at Apple, right, in my first quarter at UCSD. So that was great. And then once I did that summer internship, towards the end of it, I talked to different people there, and like I got couple of interview offers from Apple, and I, then got a job offer, and then I started my full-time job with them.
Oh, so when you were working at Apple, what was the role assigned to you?
Right. Yeah. And I can also talk about my experience there. So I was working, actually, this is a really interesting thing to talk about. My role at Apple that I started as a full-time in my full-time job was a rotation engineer. Now that sounds kind of funny, but they had just started a new program called Siri Rotation Program. And what that means is that Siri, is the voice assistant in iPhone, right? So the Siri team decided that, for junior engineers, they wanted to have this rotation program where they would hire us, and then over a period of 1.5 years, you can work with 6 different teams for 3 months each. So it's like a bunch of mini internships or like mini projects that you do with different teams. So because of that, I actually got so much exposure. And also because I was working kind of more towards hardware earlier, and this was particularly more towards software, working with 6 different teams and like kind of exploring what each team did, and every team was working on very different things. So I worked on machine learning, I worked on embedded systems, I worked on like search, um, and then also use different programming languages for most of them. There was Objective C, Python, there was C++. So I was like working in different languages, working with different teams over this period of 1.5 years. It was a really amazing experience. And then at the end of the program, you could choose one of the teams to go back to as a full-time role. And then that's when I chose to go to Core ML, which is Apple's, team where they accelerate ML for Apple devices like MacBooks and phones and stuff. So I joined that, and my work was related to optimizing machine learning algorithms for MacBooks. So I worked there for a bit as well.
Really interesting. So as we know, you're currently working with Google and as a software engineer. So how did your past experiences help you connect the dots and finally land a job at Google?
Right. So okay. So if you talk about past experiences, I really have to kind of connecting, huh? So if you connected back to my past experiences, I feel like a really pivotal like experience in my life was the robotics club that I was in during IIT. The one thing I learned from the robotics club was that it taught me to never give up. At like if there's something you find is like difficult, or like you think like, oh, um, things are not working, because during the robotics club and like when we did projects there, a lot of the times things would just go bad at the really last time, like last moment. And like right before the competition, your robot would like stop working, or like sometimes things like just blasted or like exploded. And that's really happened with us, like our circuit would like explode into like bits and pieces, and then we are like, okay, we have a competition in half an hour, what do we do now? So it really taught me how to like not give up, and kind of improvise and do stuff. So when I was preparing for my interviews for Google, it can be notoriously hard to crack an interview with Google. There were instances where I wanted to give up, and I was like, okay, this is too difficult, I can't do this. And at that point I was like, okay, but I should not give up. I mean, that's what my robotics club taught me, you should not give up. So I just kept going at it. The other thing is like I also got really good at like learning stuff myself quickly. Also through the rotation program, I was doing that a lot because I was working with, different teams every 3 months. And every 3 months, you have to start from scratch. You have to learn like different languages. You have to like learn the team's culture and, the tools that they use. So I got really good at like, learning things myself and really quickly. So I think even that is helping me currently at Google a lot, because at Google, you have to do a lot of learning every day. So Google is more like an institution, and then there's like a set way of doing things, and you should learn how to, even the code inside Google is like so different from like the code I've written anywhere else. There's a lot of learning on a day-to-day basis that you need to do to kind of keep up with that. So I think that helped me too. Yeah, I think those are the two things that kind of stand out to me.
I see. So, could you maybe elaborate more on your work in Google? Like, how is it different from the companies like you worked previously?
Oh, right. So that is an interesting question. So it is actually very different from what I've done before, mostly because at Google, everything is at such a huge scale. Like everything is just, it's not like if you're working on Gmail, there's like millions and billions of people using Gmail every day. If you make even a small mistake and like Gmail is like out for like maybe 5 minutes, it will affect so many users. And it's probably going to make it to the news as well. And recently, I think YouTube was out for a some time, and everyone was like, "Oh my God, what's going on? Is the world ending? Like, why is YouTube not working?" So people have this like huge expectation from Google to like the standards are really high. You have this huge expectation of like if you are trying to even check whether the internet is working, you just go to google.com, right? Because you expect that Google would always be up. So that is part of the thing, and then also the scale is just enormous. It's huge. So when you're programming as a software engineer at Google, you have to think of these two things all the time. You have to think about reliability and you have to think of scale. So these are two things I had not thought about before, because most of my work was based on devices. So as I said, even back at Apple, I was working on a team which was working for MacBooks. So I was always concerned with like one single device. But at Google, like there's billions of users with their like different devices and everything. So you have to kind of think about that, think about the scale, reliability, those kind of things. Yeah.
Really interesting. Yeah. So, how has your journey been till now with the company, Google?
All right, yeah, it's been pretty good actually. So the one thing I really love about Google is the work culture. Like it's pretty like it's really nice. There's a really good work-life balance. People here are extremely smart. That it's crazy how smart people are. Like that, it's the case everywhere in the Silicon Valley for sure. But at Google, like I've been feeling this even more. Because of that, it's like also easy to have more imposter syndrome. Uh, but I think everybody at Google, like most of the people working at Google, might be having that. So that's something I remind yourself is like, okay, the other person is also thinking like this. So stop thinking like that. Don't feel like you are not good enough or something. But people are really smart. They're extremely helpful. So that's what I mean when I said the work culture is great. And the work-life balance is pretty good as well. So, and we're working on like really hard problems every day. So that's also something that's really interesting, keeps you engaged.
Great. So, as of now, like you've been in US for quite a few years now. So,
Mhm.
how you like find the difference in the work culture between US and India?
Oh, that's a very interesting question. So because I worked back at, at India in Intel in Bangalore, and then I've also worked here in two different companies. So I could actually compare that. So I feel like there's also always like pros and cons to things. It's always about your personal preference, where you want to end up or like what you want to do in your life. So there's no like one answer of like, oh, this is better than that. What I can tell you is like kind of the pros and cons I personally felt. So while I was working back at India, I was really enjoying it. It was my first job, out of college. The one thing I noticed was like the personal connections that I made in India were like so much stronger and like so much more in just number than it is here in the US. Like I do, have a lot of colleagues here who I'm like friends with, but back in India it was like a huge group of friends, and like uh, people used to celebrate like birthdays, anniversaries, everything. Like I think that's part of the work culture of India, not so much here in the US. So in the US, your coworkers are still like super friendly with you. You are friends with them, but it's like people won't be celebrating your birthday, for example. So that's something I kind of miss, and it was kind of a culture shock for me. With the first year I was working here, it was my birthday, and I was like, oh, does nobody care? But I mean, that doesn't take away the fact that I really enjoy working in the US as well. I think I also mentioned this a little bit earlier in the interview. and it holds true for the workplace as well, is that, if there's a problem, there's like no one solution to it. And because of the diversity efforts here in the US, like they try to make sure that everybody's voice is heard, and your solution to the problem is like kind of also taken into account. There's like no one answer to any question, so a lot more critical thinking, a lot more creative thinking. Whereas in India, there's still a culture of like, more like respect for your manager, bosses, and kind of being more obedient, not kind of speaking out like too much. There's like, I felt a little bit of that. I'm sure it might be changing now because it's been a while since I worked in India, but I did feel that a little bit when I was back there.
Well, that was really interesting talking about your present and your past experiences. We'd like to know, what are your future plans?
Oh, yeah. Okay. That's a tough one. So right now I'm like still learning. As I said, at Google, like every day you have to like learn something new. So I'm enjoying that a lot. So I feel like I would probably continue doing that for a while. The other thing, like probably while talking to me, you might have noticed that I'm really passionate about diversity actually. So and encouraging more women in STEM is something I continuously think about. I have been a part of like some recruiting like panels and like influenced recruiting here like when I was at Apple, and tried to like make it more diverse in terms of like hiring more women. But I do feel like in terms of future plans, that's something I want to continue doing. How I will do that, I have to still figure out. Maybe once I become a manager or something, I can have more power to influence hiring, or have some programs, that would help recruit more women, or like even encourage more women in STEM, right? That's the first piece of the puzzle, to like actually encourage more women to take up STEM. And then, you make sure that they're hired at a parity to the male counterparts. So maybe I want to do something in that, zone, but I haven't figured out what it is. So that's kind of my very vague future plan for you.
That's really interesting that you'd like to work for women in STEM. So yeah, really amazing. Lastly, any piece of advice for the IITD Janta?
Oh, okay. I think I've kind of tried to, pepper like a little bit, here and there in the interview, but I feel like firstly, like once you graduate from IIT, you are going to really miss it. So make the most of your time there. Secondly, as I said, talk to as many people as you can who have different experiences. So when I was back at IIT, like some people wanted to go into consulting, finance, some people wanted to do masters, some people just wanted to go for a job. I, did not talk to every, different people who had these different preferences. Even if I did not want to go into consulting, maybe I could talk to them and learn something from them, and I see kind of, okay, what is this all about, and then decide not to do it, right? So just try out everything, try to talk to different people, and then make a decision. And one thing I cannot stress enough is to try to do some projects while you're at IIT. Like it really helps your resume, not just course projects, but like if you can take some sort of study or research course with independent study, I think it's called, right? An independent study or a research course with a professor, I think even that will add so much value to your profile.
Thanks for your advice. And yeah, it's truly been amazing talking to you. It was really insightful discussion. Thank you very much for joining us today. And
Thank you.
yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun talking to you, and you said I've done a lot in my life. I don't know. I'm just sharing, like, whatever I know. I hope it's useful to some of the people watching this.
Well, you're really a role model for most of us. So yeah.
Thank you so much.